Well, hi, everybody. This is Glenn the Geek, and this is episode 535 of the Stable Scoop Show. Tonight, we have our annual dot watching party with Devan Horn. Our sponsor this episode is Kemin Equine. I am Glenn the Geek, founder of the Horse Radio Network and host of Horses in the Morning, the longest running daily horse podcast or any podcast in the world. We're doing something a little different tonight. We're going to be analyzing the dots. That's right, the riders that make their way past the halfway point of the Mongol Derby. And I have a good friend of mine helping me tonight, somebody I love to do this with every year. Most of you know, if you're watching or listening to this, the Mongol Derby is the longest horse race in the world across the steppes and mountains and valleys and swamps and everything else in Mongolia. Riding some Mongol ponies, and we're going to talk all about that tonight. If you want to follow along with the dots, my advice for you, if you're watching this live, we're doing this as video and audio. So if you're watching this live, you can go to the Mongol Derby website, just search up Mongol Derby 2022 and click on the little lines at the upper right-hand corner and then click on live and you'll see the map. You'll get to follow the dots. We're going to bring that up tonight and show you that as well. But first, if you are watching live, please post where you're from. And we'll actually, Devan and I can see the comments, so post where you're from, and we would love to your first name, because we don't always see the names. It just says Facebook user for a lot of them, and we would love to know where you're watching from. And if you have a relative or a friend riding, let us know, and we'll try and talk about them a little bit too. In the meantime, we have my co-host here tonight who, again, I think we've done this for years and years and years. She's a 100-mile ultra runner, black belt, ultra long-distance endurance rider, and many-time Mongol Derby veteran because she's a glutton for punishment. We have my friend Devan Horn. Hi, Devan.
Hey, Glenn. How's it going?
Good. So good to be doing this again.
I know. Another year, another Derby. I have so missed this through the pandemic.
Now, we have done them sometimes when you've been over there doing your thing. So we've covered you doing this as well. I think this is probably our 10th year doing this.
Really?
It's been a long time.
Where has my life gone?
So we're going to talk a lot tonight about the different things going on over there, what the atmosphere is like. They've just passed the halfway point now. And who's in the lead? You know some of these people, so we'll talk about that as well. We have Barb from Wellington, Nevada, Rosemary from Essex, Vermont. We have Kathy from Ocala. So we have a bunch of people joining us tonight. Thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. So you've done this 3 times, if I remember right.
That's right. I have ridden the Mongol Derby 3 times. I have 2 second place finishes and 1 DNF, which is a did not finish. So.
And for all of you that don't know Devan, 2 second place finishes still gets in her craw a little bit because she's very proud of that. But Devan likes to win things. So
I do really like to win things. I gave it everything I had. But
yeah, you almost killed yourself the one year.
Yeah, sure would have been nice to say I'm a Mongol Derby winner, but not in the cards.
What's the name of that documentary you were in?
Yeah, one of my years they followed the race, and it was set into a documentary called All the Wild Horses. Of course, they did it the year that I didn't finish. So if you'd like to see me throw up a lot, you can Google it. It's on Amazon Prime.
They left those all in too. They seem to like that.
I have some really great like slow-mo chunder points. It's like the only thing on my history for IMDb. It's incredible.
That's funny. So yes, it was a dramatic. It does show you how hard it is, though.
It does.
It emphasizes. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
there's no hiding that.
This race is grueling. It's 1,000 kilometers. It is the longest and toughest horse race on the planet. Every single person who makes it just to the start line is an amazing equestrian and survivalist. It's hard to put into words when you're sitting here having a drink, watching a dot, how difficult it is to really do this race.
Let's talk a little bit about that. You have to apply and be accepted and pay a lot of money to do this, right?
Yeah. The entry fee, I believe, is sitting around $15,000 American. And every single person who is in the race this year passed a rigorous screening of interviews and, okay, what kind of rider are you? What have you done? Sort of like a trial, a job interview almost for the toughest race on the planet. So if you can imagine, going through a panel of people to basically say, yeah, I'm a badass enough to do this race. Every single person out there made that cut.
And they've waited because it's been postponed a couple years. So this is the first year back. So some of these people may have applied in 2020, 2021, now 2022. So they're doing two races this year. This is the first.
They are, yeah. So there's 46 people who started this race 5 days ago, and 37 people still in at this time.
There you go. And there's going to be another one in a couple weeks.
Yes, there's an August edition for all the people who didn't get to go last year. So there will be 2 Mongol Derbies this year.
And that's really hard on the support crew. As soon as that's hard on.
I just imagine that they'll sleep for a week straight in between.
I've been hearing from our friend Eric. Eric is like a legend. If you follow Mongol Derby, he's over there every year. He's part of the organizing crew. Really, he's part of the crew over there. He practically lives in Mongolia the other parts of the year anyway, and he loves us for some reason. And I hear from him almost every day. So he said it's been interesting this year. It's been keeping him busy. So
yeah, and just as a plug, he also leads expeditions that are way more sane than the Mongol Derby. He does, horseback expeditions to the reindeer tribes, to the eagle hunters, all sorts of things. So he really lives and breathes Mongolia.
he's a fascinating dude.
He is.
You could do a movie about him. He's a fascinating dude. He
You
really
absolutely could. Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's go over this year's Mongol Derby and talk a little bit about it. We're 5 days in. Now, how long do they have to finish this thing?
You have 10 days to finish the 1000K, which is kind of not a whole lot of time. If you break that down, you have to cover about 100K a day, which is not easy on semi-feral wild ponies on this difficult terrain, managing your own food and shelter. It's a bit of a feat just to make that kind of mileage. Now, if you do the math roughly, that means that if you want to finish in 10 days, all of the competitors should be past horse station 15 at this time, which is not true. We have quite a few competitors who are, strung out between stations 14, 13, 12 right now, which is not great news for their wishes to finish within 10 days.
Now, I have the map up. This is when we talk about dot watching, this is what we watch. So they all have GPS trackers, and we watch the dots. If I get in closer, this is being really slow, so I think a lot of people are on it right now. But when I get in close, you're going to see little dots, and you can hover over the dots, and it's going to give you the name when it's loading. It's going to give you the name of the person. It's taking a while. Yeah, it's just... it's being slow. It's going to give you the name of the person that the dot corresponds to. And right there, now it popped up. So you can see Sean McBride's right there, and you can get him really close and focus on this. But these little circles, tell us what those are.
Those are all horse stations. So at these horse stations, they're located every roughly 40 kilometers along the trek. And they'll have... spare horses, food, and water for the riders. So essentially, it's fairly simple. You just ride between these dots, and you have your GPS and it tells you which way to go. And then you have to pick your way. You have to find your own different way in between horse stations, and then get to them, pass a vet check, get on another horse, and rinse and repeat. Sounds pretty simple, right?
Yeah, it does. It sounds pretty simple. Except tell us about the horses.
So the horses are all semi-feral wild Mongolian horses that are turned out to fend for themselves in the winter. They are cantankerous. They do buck. They rear. They are not dependent on humans for water or food. And they certainly don't necessarily enjoy being ridden by Western riders. So every 40K, as you get more and more tired, as you get more and more hungry, you have to deal with a new fresh horse that hasn't done anything, and convince it to let you ride it for a long time.
Well, let's talk about the front runners now. We'll go through them a little bit. We have right now in the front, Chris Walker from the UK. Let's take a look at Chris here. Chris is actually not a youngster. He's not one of the younger riders, actually. So he's been a horseman for a long time. He has 30 hunting horses. He plays polo. He rides point to point. This guy knows how to be in the saddle. And he's been kind of up there the whole time.
Yeah, he and Patrick have kind of been riding with the front pack or just off the front pack for pretty much 5 days now. And they made sort of a ballsy decision last night. They came into horse station 16 with and vetted through with about 18 minutes to spare on their riding time for yesterday and decided to ride out. That is a really, really ballsy maneuver because I have no idea where they slept last night. They may have found a family, but from the map, it doesn't look like there's anything there. So they may have spent a night trying to keep their horses together.
Matter of fact, if you look close, it looks like they might have slept on top of a hill or a mountain because there's a range of what looks like small mountains right there.
I have no idea where they spent the night. It does appear that they're moving this morning, which means that they probably have their horses, which is not a surefire thing. When you're sleeping out on the Mongolian steppe, it is very easy to lose a horse and have it wander off in the middle of the night. I have seen them canter full out with three-legged hobbles on. So it's so difficult to keep them. And so if they're moving this morning, I have good faith that they were able to hold on to those buggers.
Now, or they're walking really fast.
Or they're walking really fast. Or they're on a motorcycle looking for their horses.
Yeah.
All of those things could be true.
So how do you, if you're cowboy camping, which means you're sleeping on the ground and you didn't find family with a yurt, which is a lot of times what happens, you're out there by yourself. How do you keep a hold of your horse?
The answer is however you can. You're not going to get a whole lot of sleep or rest or time when you're not going to have to be like holding onto your horse unless you find somewhere to tie it. Although there aren't very many trees out there, so your luck is going to have to be that you're camping underneath a telephone pole, maybe that you can tie your horse to, or something along those lines. It is so difficult to keep them together. I've seen those crafty Mongolian horses climb out of corrals, like climb over the fences in hobbles with their head tied to their front feet. They're just very, very crafty little creatures.
Speaking of which, if we go back to day 2, 3 riders decided to lose their horses on day 2. And tell us about that.
I couldn't believe it. Actually, 2 of them lost them on day 1. Like they hadn't even gotten to the first horse station. And some brilliant person decided to route the course through a river before you got to horse station 1. And 2 people on their horses went into the river and came up without their horses. And the horses took off. Now, I don't know if they've been found, but they have not been reunited with any of their gear or their stirrups or anything. So they literally had to just go forward with like loaner gear and no stirrups.
Apparently, and they call themselves Stirrupless and Stupid. That was the name of their group.
Yes. So. And then on the second day, they were joined by a third person who had the unfortunate same lost horse on the steppe somewhere situation happen to them. So yeah, the 3 of them sort of banded together as Stirrupless and Stupid.
And we had by the way, it was international too. We had UK, France, and USA in that pack. So
yes, it was a equal opportunity stupidity moment.
Everybody remembers several years ago, I think it was 2018, probably, when Leslie Wiley, when I made the mistake of challenging Leslie Wiley to do this on the air, and she did, and I've never heard the end of it since. But she lost her stirrups and rode for, was it 30 kilometers or something, stirrupless at a gallop? I mean, she was just nuts.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you have to do. Your choices are sit around and wait or try to move forward as best you can. And these guys and Leslie chose to give it a try, you know?
Well, they did. And this is loading really slower. I would get in here. Let me see if I can get in a little closer. It gets this way when everybody's loading at the same time.
Yeah, everyone must be checking in. It is 7:45 a.m., I believe, local Mongolian time. So everyone is just starting to get up and, be in the saddle and get out there. So it's a very popular time for people to check in.
Well, let's do this. Let's go over to the race news for day 5, and I'll try and bring that up. In the meantime, let's talk a little bit about the others that are in the lead pack. So we have Chris Walker from the UK and Patrick Heffron from Ireland. They are the 2 that are in the lead. They are the ones at Cowboy Camp last night, we think, out in the middle of nowhere. The rest of the group actually stayed at the horse station 16 and then left at 7 o'clock this morning. And there we have Sean McBride from the UK. We have Deidre Griffith. Now, she has a story too, right, from the United States?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Eric, you were talking about Eric, being a good friend of the show. He's been passing us updates back and forth. And one of the things that he said was, Oh my gosh, Griffith.
Yes.
She started out in last place on day one, and just has slowly but surely gone through the pack up into to the lead pack, the chase pack, which is incredible.
And and so she passed everybody pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. She just said she waved up at to them as she went past and said, "Goodbye, friends. I'm going to the front." So she's made enormous. I mean, obviously she's picked it up. Um,
She was a guide at a dude ranch in Wyoming for a lot of years, and that's where she met her husband, and they have two little kids right now too. So she's had some time in the saddle. She knows about riding in wild places for
She
sure.
absolutely has, and she's one of the people who I had kind of been coaching a little bit and sort of like talking back and forth with her this year, just sort of like giving her pack lists and stuff. And she sent me on like at 3 in the morning on the start line. She was asking me like last minute navigational questions. So she
Apparently, it worked.
she was definitely like in it to win it. She really wanted to be competitive and was asking awesome questions and doing some really amazing training and really wanted that competitive edge. So it's really cool to see that something has really clicked and she is really getting it and becoming, one with the race, as it were, out there. So
Very cool. And then we have Wilhelmine from South Africa's in that lead pack. Tiffany Atterbury, that's the one from Ocala here, who's a veterinarian, happens to be a veterinarian at the farm where we keep our horses. And she has a large, I see a couple people posting from Ocala. So I think she has a large following here in Ocala.
yeah, and Wilhelmine was one of the people who did the COVID Derby over the quarantine years. So she's
Oh,
been
yeah.
training really hard and doing a lot of kilometers. I know because I logged them for her. Um, and she's just been doing an incredible amount of training. So she's definitely one to watch as well.
And, the South Africans have notoriously done very well in the
Yes.
Derby. Yeah.
Yeah, their endurance scene is epic over there. I've had the luck to go over and see firsthand, but there are some serious endurance riders.
We have Howard B., whose name we don't say because it's 85 letters, from Australia. And you predicted when I had you on the show last week that he would be in the front.
I did, yeah.
He's a cattleman.
Yeah, the Australian cattlemen are just a different breed, Glenn. They are tough as nails. I just assume that they wrestle crocodiles like all the time because every
Apparently.
time every time I meet one, Kathy Gabriel is also a cattleman or someone who lives in the bush of Australia, and she's tough as dirt as well. It's just something in the water, I guess.
Well, Tyler Donaldson, Australian, is up there, and Sam Edney, who's from New Zealand. That's a female Sam. She's up in that lead pack as well. So, some of them will drop out. That's what happens in the second half. Well, describe the difference. Once you cross day 5, how are you feeling? And are you in a rhythm or do things just start to hurt more?
It really depends on the person, I'd say. Some people get past day 5 and then it kind of feels like it's downhill, like they've passed the halfway point and they have a second wind and it's feeling okay and you sort of understand the horses now. And some people have a lot of, chafing and soreness and just injuries at this point that just progressively get worse and worse. So for some people, this will feel like a breakthrough, and other people, this will feel like a descent into hell.
Like, oh my God, I got 4 or 5 more days of this.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It does appear, so kind of explain this. We have to take a commercial break here, and then we'll go through that blog, the pictures. I want to show the pictures to everybody from day 5, because there were some incredible pictures that I think you'll be able to comment on. But so there seems to be a larger group trailing behind the halfway point at halfway at day 5 that haven't made it to the halfway point yet. It seems like a larger group than usual. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so my understanding is that the equestrianists have sort of cut the riding hours this year. In previous years, riders were allowed to ride between 7 a.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. at night. And this year, I think they're cutting off around 7 or maybe even 6 in the evening. And now this choice was probably made because of how difficult it is to corral people in the evenings in Mongolia. And how dangerous it is to have crews running around at night. So I can definitely understand why this choice was made from a safety and logistics standpoint. However, I'm just not sure that it's giving the riders and competitors enough time to really cover the ground that they need to. The ones that are moving a little bit slower than the front pack, the guys who are not cantering from station to station. So I feel like I've heard a little bit of rumor about them extending some riding hours.
Well, it did look like they did announce that today. They're going to extend today by an hour, they said.
Yeah, that's great. To really give the back of the pack and the middle of the pack, the people who really are committed to riding every step of this adventure and finishing, with an official finish in a place, give those guys a chance and a little bit more time to get some ground covered in the daylight, as long as everyone's safe.
Well, one other thing, we'll go to commercial and then we'll come back and take a look at the blog post they did. But there was a mother-daughter team we talked about last week on Horses in the Morning, and they had to pull out, I think, on day 2. So that was Janet and Nancy O'Neill. Did you hear anything about why? They didn't post anything about why.
Yeah, so this is the story that I've pieced together so far, is that Janet was having a couple of asthma-related issues on day 2. They went ahead and medevaced her to Ulaanbaatar for a little while, and then she rejoined the race in the hopes that she could get back out there and go, but it was just not to be.
As a guy with asthma, when you start having those issues, it sucks.
Yeah, and of course, there's no way to tell when you're sitting in Canada what's going to set your asthma off in Mongolia. There's just no way. So.
That's true. All right, let's take a little break. You can hang loose there, and we're going to be right back after we hear from our friends at Kemin Equine. Oops, there we go. And we want to thank Kemin Equine for their continued support of the Horse Radio Network, and especially the Stable Scoop Show. If you're just joining us, I have Devan Horn on here, and we are doing a dot watching party, talking about the Mongol Derby like we do most years. Devan, I said earlier, I always wanted to ask you this, and I keep forgetting. You're a black belt in what?
Kuksulwon, which is a traditional Korean martial art.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Very cool. All right, let's take a look at that blog post. Let me bring this back up. This was their day. They do a blog post every day where they post pictures and all kinds of stuff. Let me put it all the way on the screen here so we can see. And let's bring it up. And you can check out the writing. They talk about what happened. This would have been yesterday. They've just started day 6. Right?
Holly,
I think.
yes.
Yeah.
Holly Conyers is doing these write-ups, and they're really, really fun to read. They're my favorite part of watching the Derby, I think, is the leaderboards and the write-ups.
Apparently, from what I've seen, they've been in the steppes of Mongolia, which is kind of the flat valleys, and now they're, from the topography maps, they're heading into the mountains.
Right, yeah. So the main thing that they've had to watch out for in the low riverlands are bogs, which are these horrible stretches for miles of just mud and boggy, low ground that the horses can get stuck in and wallow, and just really slows you down. So they've had to sort of learn how to circumnavigate that. And now they get to learn how to circumnavigate mountains. So,
and apparently pain, if you look at this picture.
And pain. This guy's really seems to be having a rough time with his knee there.
So what about the saddles? What saddles are on there? You can sort of see them in this picture here.
Yeah, those are custom synthetic saddles by a saddle maker in South Africa called Franco C. They do all of the Derby saddles they have for years, and they custom make them to be really short, so they fit on these little guys.
Another injury. There's a picture of one of the female riders holding up what looks like a broken thumb.
Yes, that is Madeleine Montelet of France. She is actually the last place rider right now. Okay. As far as the last competitive place, there are a couple people in the adventure category that are behind her. But she is just, she's a 3-day eventer from France, and she has a broken thumb, and she's just doing her best out there. I've been following her dot as well.
Good for her. Yes. And ouch. This is a picture of somebody's knee with no skin on it.
I don't know how they managed to do that. That's not necessarily a rub that you would normally get from a saddle or anything. I'm really, really curious how they did that.
Yeah, I don't know. And then apparently we're adding camels to the mix. So here's a picture of what looks like Eric on a camel.
I'm assuming he's looking for some satellite reception. It's definitely a little better up there than it is on the ground.
I bet. You know, it really makes me mad because he's texting us all the time. We travel in the United States and can't get a signal. He's in the middle of Mongolians and sending us messages all the time.
Well, Glenn, are you usually on a camel?
No, not
Well,
usually.
that's where you've gone wrong.
So it looks like they had fun with the camel at one of the stops. I think that was one of the horse stations. They had fun there. Now, here's a picture of a couple of the ponies. And by the way, these ponies are what, 13 tans?
Not even, probably more like 11 or 12.
They're tough, though. Don't feel bad about adults riding these ponies.
No.
But they had blankets on. I was surprised to see blankets in this picture on these ponies.
Yeah, so the Mongolian people, you don't see water very often out here. So cooling horses and keeping horses cool is super important to them. And one of the things that is really helpful is to keep the horses out of the direct sunlight. So those sheets are functioning as coolers. They're keeping the sun off of the horses' backs. And those are from the race report. Those are the family's prize race horses. So they take extra special care of those little guys.
So these two are high tide. And for those that don't know what high tide means, it means there's a wire between two poles and their quote unquote lead ropes or their ties are to that wire. So they can go back and forth. Are all of the ponies taught that?
They are. They start when they're babies by the first thing they learn is hobble training. So they'll tie their front feet to a low line situation. And then they're taught to high line. And the high line is kind of ingenious because when they tug on them or set back, it sets the poles even deeper into the ground. So it's difficult to knock them over. Not impossible. I have seen it done. But it has to be a coordinated effort from all of the horses.
There's another pony we're looking at in front of a couple of the yurts. Another pony in blankets there, high tide. And now we're looking at a rider who is completely covered from head to toe. Either it's really cold there or she's trying to hide from the sun.
She is trying to hide from the sun. The same as those Mongolian ponies are covering up from sun scald. She's doing the exact same thing.
She does look like something out of Mad Max, though.
Yes, I'm sure some of it was an artistic choice.
All right, so here we're looking at a picture riding a pony. You can see the yurts actually way off in the background there, but it's a valley. You can see the water you were talking about, the swampland basically, and then the mountains in the background. It's a beautiful picture, actually.
Yeah, and I believe this is Wendy. I can't remember if this is a Wendy picture or not, but one of the things that I love watching is the rider position and how it changes throughout the race. So usually it's one or the other. At the start of the race, people are usually either leaning a little bit too far forward or a little bit too far back on the horses, and it kind of looks like they're still sort of getting the stride of it. And then by day 5, everyone looks just like this. Everyone looks like they are working with the horses together in a really nice cadence to me. So I love watching that. I love watching the riders just like click and get it.
We'll take a look at a picture down below that isn't that right there.
Okay.
So here's just more pictures of them coming across the steppe, which is either a kid in the foreground or a scarecrow. I'm not sure which.
I think it's a Mongolian kid. They get so excited for this race. They love meeting the people and, messing with our tack and stealing flashlights and just, it's just an exciting event for them,
And you guys all carry GPS, I assume satellite GPSs, right? Garmin's or something?
Yes, Garmin's.
Yeah. So that's how you navigate?
Yes. So essentially there's no set course, there's no flags to follow. You have to choose, for example, in the background of this picture, if the GPS dot was on the other side of that ridgeline, you would have to choose how to get across that ridgeline, whether you wanted to tackle it face on, whether you wanted to try to go around, that kind of thing. So
when we looked at the map earlier, we have the two leaders who decided to go what looked like through the mountains, and then the rest of the pack that was coming up behind them looked like they were going around and down a valley between the mountains. So they choose how they want to do that.
And there's no telling which one's going to be faster until it's already done,
Yeah, because this is not a set course. It's not like we're running the same course every year.
No, the courses actually remains sort of like a secret until race day briefing, and then you sort of know where you're going, so...
I like how here's a picture of a pony way in the distance in the grass, in what looks like grasslands, and then a little shack right there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that could be a dwelling or it could be a supply shack. I have no idea.
Yeah. Do they move around? Do the families there move?
Yes, the herders are nomadic, which means that they'll move based on herds and grass availability.
Okay, so here we have a rider coming through what looks like a stream with the pony up to, well, above the pony's waist. How many stream crossings do you have usually?
There's no telling. It just depends on where the course goes. It looks like from the photos they've had quite a few river crossings, including the one that swept away someone's horse,
Oh,
two
really?
people's horses,
Oops.
or at least the horses got into the river and got out without their riders and took off on day one. So yeah, rivers are great. They allow you a chance to let your horse get a drink, to cool them off a little bit, get their heart rates nice and low. But it is a risk, of course, getting in there because the ponies might not want to get out.
We were looking at a picture of one of the riders grimacing a lot while the vet is checking the heart rate of the horse. I'm not sure what that picture was about.
I'm not sure either.
Here's a classic picture that you're going to see at every Mongol Derby 100 times, and that's the rider looking back and waving at the camera as they're flying by. I love these pictures. These are my favorite pictures from the Mongol Derby.
It takes a lot of guts to take both hands off the reins.
And then we have a rider walking into a horse station, leading the pony. How often does that happen? Do you have to give the ponies a break?
That's Kathy. That's one of Kathy Gabriel from Australia. She is walking to give her horse a chance for his heart rate to come down. A lot of times, if they're not used to being ridden or a little bit more feisty, it's actually helpful to just like leave them the hell alone, and then their heart rates will come down more so than if you're fussing over them. So that's what she's doing in this picture. She's walking him into the station, giving him a chance to relax, letting him know his job's done for now so his heart rate can get nice and low.
And, for the most part, these are not ponies that like to be loved on anyway. So
No.
leaving them alone is a better plan.
Yes.
Yeah. This particular picture is something you see a lot at the Mongol Derby, and this is a picture of a rider who apparently has just gotten on, and the pony is trying to buck her off enthusiastically.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I don't know that anybody's lucky enough to get through the Mongol Derby without their pony pulling some sort of shit. Uh, they are feisty little buggers. They're hot. They're temperamental. They're virtually unchanged from the war horses that Genghis Khan conquered Eurasia with. They are meant to work. They're wild, and they are really just little forces of nature. So you have to sort of try to get along with them, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it's kumbaya, and sometimes it's absolutely not.
Okay, we had a couple questions. Must you be mounted when you arrive at a station? That's no, right? You can walk into the station.
No, you can walk in if you'd like from a mile, quarter mile, whatever feels right to you. You're more than welcome to walk your horse in.
And then we had a question mark. It says vet station question mark. So kind of explain what the horse stations are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll show the map here then too. Again, I think we were about done with the pictures. There's a bunch more of just riders riding. Oh, we'll get to that one. So when I showed the pictures earlier, you saw the horse stations, all the waypoints that they have to go to. Explain what happens at those waypoints.
Right. So the overarching sort of mantra of the Derby is that riders can get as beat to hell as they'd like, and the horses have to be pristine. So the horses cannot be harmed, the horses cannot be overridden. You have to take perfect care, like a Fabergé egg, of these wild horses, which is pretty difficult to manage when you're getting tired and they really want to rock it off all over the step with you. So every time you switch your horse out or get to a new station, they have a veterinarian. And their veterinary team is comprised of like FEI 4-star veterinarians who will check your horse's heart rate. They'll ask you to have him trot a little bit if that's possible. Sometimes they don't cooperate. They'll check him for any saddle sores, anything to let them know that the horse might be distressed whatsoever. And if anything is found to be out of place, if a hair is mussed on his little head, they will give you a vet penalty, which is usually 2 hours, and you have to sit out, and that goes against your riding time.
So it's interesting. We've had another question. What are the numbers on the ponies' butts? It looks like they're, and you can see it on this pony here in this picture. They're tattooed, or it looks like they're branded like our Mustangs are, or some of our quarter horses and things.
So that dude has 2 marks. The one on the bottom is either a brand or a knife scar from the guy who owns him. That's going to be like a local Mongolian herder's brand. And then the 7, or the 1 that's on his butt, is going to indicate that he's been vetted for the Mongol Derby. So before they check the horses out, they also go over them with the same fine tooth comb to make sure that they're fit enough to handle the journey. And that grease paint marker, like a cow or an endurance horse at an endurance ride, lets them know that that horse has been checked.
So let's say one of the horses gets ridden on day one, right? And of course, these horses then they ride, what was it, 40 kilometers?
Yes.
They ride 40 kilometers and then you get a new horse. Are they ever reused at the end of the race, or once they ride once, they're done?
They're done. They just have to do 40K, and then usually the herder will wait until all of his horses come through, and then they'll turn around and go right back home. So they will, get some water, get some rest, enjoy themselves for a little while, and then turn around and go home, because these horses on average travel between 20 and 30K a day just to get enough water and food in their normal daily lives. So,
and these are all owned by herders, right? Does the Mongol Derby, does the adventurous, do they pay them for the use of the horses, and that's how they help support the locals?
Absolutely, yeah. The Mongol Derby pays the herders for every horse that they lease for the event, and they also pay the herders to host stations. So if one of the Urtus or the horse stations feeds the riders, collects fresh water for them, they pay the locals for all of that support.
Like this.
Yes. I think they mentioned and I can't remember this rider's name, but they mentioned that he is definitely eating people out of house and home. Though he's not eating anybody's winter stores. They'll be compensated for the food and the water and all that good stuff. So it looks to me like he's enjoying a little bit of mutton soup there, and maybe some bread as well.
Apparently, it was a big treat because apparently it's mutton pretty much every day. But one of the places they stayed, they went out and fished, and they came home with some fish. They actually had seafood.
I have a really funny story that I can tell about my Derby experience, in which one of my stations also had fresh fish, and I was so excited because everything was mutton. So I grabbed a piece of fish and I shoved the entire fish in my mouth. And Setsky, one of the translators, went, "It has bones in it."
Oh, no.
And I was on my horse at this point. I was galloping off into the steppe with like a throat full of fish bones, trying to steer a galloping Mongolian horse and fish the bones out of my throat.
How did Devan die? Oh, it wasn't from being thrown from a horse. It was a fish bone.
I really had that thought while I was trying to get myself out of this.
Yeah, all the crazy things you've done in your life, and you die from a fish bone. That would.
I would hope that everyone who knew me would know not to put that on my obituary.
We would have had fun at your funeral with that one. Let me tell you.
No. So I'm glad that everyone at the fish station sat down and enjoyed their fish and did not die.
Here's a picture of what an inside of a yurt looks like, right?
Yeah. So over his shoulder, the guy in the pink hat, you'll see a shrine or a household shrine. And then it looks like
there's a Buddha there, I think.
Yeah, Eric is sitting next to him and a rider there. And it looks like he
Can I comment on Eric? We've talked about Eric. Eric always has this look of amazement on his face all the time.
He lives kind of an amazing life, so.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and the thing that looks like an arepa on the thing, that's
right there.
Probably a I don't know the name in Mongolia, but it's made of cheese, and it's like a cheese film situation. So
it's almost like an empanada or something like that.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. And this big bowl, is that soup?
No, it's milk.
Is that the mare's milk?
No, that's Eric. That would be in a more ceremonial container. That's probably milk tea or sa, which is sort of a thin skim milk, hot liquid that they drink at every meal.
Boy, beautiful bowl though, huh?
Yeah. And I think if I can see right, there's sort of like a metal container underneath her elbow.
Which does look like a milk container or something.
That might be Eric.
Which is the fermented mare's milk?
Yes. It kind of tastes like Bud Light mixed with yogurt, if you're wondering.
We've joked about this every year. That's a great shot right there.
Yes. So you can see all the wind burn on everyone's faces by day 5.
Red.
It's just, everyone just looks like they're wearing some sort of clown beard. It's epic.
The kids just always in these pictures look like they're having such a good time.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it from their perspective. They're just like, they're out of school. There's all these weird white people there. They don't, they're having a blast. They, they're just hanging out for 2 or 3 days. It's awesome.
It's their fair.
It is kind of like a carnival. Yeah.
These are some great shots, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great shot right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
so
we're
she's cooling out her horse, but there's not a whole lot of water available on the steppe. So she's actually using dirt to sort of create a layer between the sun and the horse there. It's a traditional form of Mongolian cooling.
very cool. I love this picture. It's a picture of one of the little kids. Well, there you go. That was from day 5. There are all the pictures. I'm glad we went through those. I will try and get, let's see if I can get the, by the way, it's the equestrianist.com, and then just click on Mongol Derby and go to live race tracking, and that's where you can follow the dots. Let's see if I can get the map to come up a little quicker this time. Let's see if half the world has stopped going to it. Okay, so here you can see the stations that we were talking about. There are all these marks. And it looks like if we zoom in on the leaders here a little bit. Oh, here, they're coming up now. Okay, so we had the 2, and that was Patrick and Chris that slept over about here last night. They are still in the lead, although it does look like they're going down one of the valleys now. They didn't go over the mountains. The next station they have to get to is over here at 17.
Yeah.
And it looks like they were going, and the same thing's happening with the trailing group.
Yeah, so they may have to, if they're unlucky, they may have to go all the way down to the end of that finger.
Let me see if I can bring up the topography without it crashing. All right.
Yeah, it takes more internet.
Oh, here we go.
If they're unlucky, there might not be a way to get over that ridge before they get down into the lowlands.
It does look like they're coming in. It's completely like a horseshoe here.
Yeah, that's worst case scenario. They may be able to wiggle over and something that we're not seeing, but worst case scenario, they may have made a choice that cost them the lead. There's no telling.
Yeah, because this group, they did what we thought they were going to do. By the way, there's a couple trail that seem to have stopped here. I don't know, Howard and Sam, although they may not have updated either.
That could be because their satellite's not pinging. They could all be together. It's difficult to tell.
Deidre's right there, and Tiffany's right up there. But we saw them go a completely different direction. I said they're going to come down one of these valleys, and that's what they're doing, it looks like.
Yeah. And the thrilling part of the dot watching is that you never know who's made the right decision until everything's done and everyone's like asleep for the night, essentially. So we'll see if those boys went the right way or not here in a couple hours.
It says here, update HBA. You can look up the names for me while I'm doing this. Also rode out with SED and TDO, not with the earlier group of riders. So apparently some of them did ride out a little later is what they're saying. So that's
Howard,
Tyler. Yeah.
Howard with a B and 1,400 syllables on that last name that we're not going to try. Yeah.
And Sam Edney and Tyler Donaldson. So they all rode out a little bit later for some reason. They slept in.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
what about food? We've talked about this in years past. We haven't brought it up because we haven't heard any stories of massive problems. But every year, every year there's a problem with stomach problems.
Yeah, it's a combination of it's a great combination of any time that you do endurance, it messes with your gut and it messes with your metabolism.
You don't know anything about this.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't know anything about that. But also, you have a bunch of people who are switching to an unpasteurized dairy diet, as well as mutton and water that it's boiled and everything in the gares or whatever, or in the stations, but maybe you take water from a different source. So it's all sorts of situations that can go wrong. And yeah, every year I tell riders, like, just plan to have diarrhea. Just bring everything you need to have it, and then if you don't, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
And of course there's porta potties all along the way.
Oh no. Oh no. I don't think I saw a single toilet any year that I've done the Derby. It's all slit trenches in the ground.
So why aren't there rolls of toilet paper hanging off their saddles?
I don't know. It would be smart. It's one of those things that, like, everyone really politely doesn't mention after they do the Derby. Like, when you come home, your friends don't want to hear about how like heinously you had to go to the bathroom. They just want to hear the fun stuff, you know.
So if anybody has any questions for Devan or about the Derby at all, just post them, write them below, and we'll see them. I do have somebody that asked, what is the most surprising thing you learned from your first Derby?
I could get really like introspective about what my derby taught me, and go sort of like down a road of self-discovery. But it also taught me a lot about, skipping all over that stuff. It taught me a lot about just different cultures and different horsemanship skills, and sort of like the fact that even though I don't speak Mongolian, I can connect with a culture on a really intimate level just through the horse, and just having this amazing connection with these people who I don't know their names, I don't speak their language, I don't know anything about them, but we both love this particular horse that we both are standing next to. That's really powerful.
How do
And
you communicate with them?
what do you mean?
With the locals?
Well,
They
the
don't
same way
speak
you do a
English.
horse.
I mean,
It's
they
the
don't
same.
speak English. So you end up camping or staying with a family in the Gur. How do you communicate?
So some people bring like little notes that say like, "Hi, my name is Devin. I'm taking part of a horse race. Could I sleep here tonight?" Which is awesome. That's a great icebreaker. And just for the most part, you have to pantomime and sort of get along with it, and just communicate without language, which is something that you can do. You can get along. You can definitely make it happen. It just takes a little effort on both sides. And honestly, you find you really don't need language.
So we talked about cowboy camping, and you did a lot of that. Actually, cowboy camping's when you usually have a sleeping bag. These guys don't even have that, but you're sleeping on the ground, no tent, no cover, or anything like that, and no protection from the elements or the animals. Did you see any animals when you were over there?
Oh yeah, I saw wolves and marmots, lots of marmots, all sorts of animals, and the ones that they keep and domesticate: camels, yaks, goats, sheep, all sorts
Were
of
the
stuff.
wolves a problem? Did they travel in packs?
Um, I only saw one when I was doing that northern route up near Russia. That one, they told us to really think critically about sleeping out by yourself because we were in wolf territory. I don't think that these guys in central Mongolia will have to worry about wolves.
Mm. So you did actually. You did a backpacking trip with horses on the Colorado Trail, which is 500 miles across the peaks of the 14,000 peaks of Colorado. And
There are
you did
wolves in
some cowboy
Colorado.
camping there, I think, right?
Yes, and there definitely are wolves in Colorado, just
And
so you
bear
know.
and everything else. Yeah, that was a fun trip. I enjoyed following you on that trip.
Yeah, it was a trip of a lifetime. We recently had the chance to go back and sort of like walk around one of our campsites, and it was just a really emotional experience, a spiritual experience.
Yeah, because that's one of the very few long distance trails, hiking trails, quote unquote, in the United States. That and the Pacific Crest Trail that you can take horses on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah. So
It's only 30 days. So if you're thinking of a holiday, I definitely recommend it.
there you go. Go with friends, though. It keeps the bears away. So anything else you want to talk about with this year's crowd? Do you any more people you want to comment on, or?
Um, Maybe Brandy Dobbin. If you wanted to pull up her profile really quickly.
Okay.
She
Yep.
is kind of a walking medical miracle. She broke a few ribs on day one, I want to say, maybe even two. And it's I don't know if the medics have sort of like gently encouraged her to stop riding, but she has not. And she is currently at horse station 13. So she's trucking
She is.
along.
Yep. She's still at 13. It looks like.
Yeah, and they just keep updating her, and she looks pretty steady in the saddle, but they definitely have diagnosed her with broken ribs, and she's still out there fighting. So definitely my hat is off to
Oh,
to
she's
Miss
an
Brandy.
inventor. She's tough. Yeah. She's had broken ribs before.
Right.
How many of these riders are endurance riders, and how many are other
A
in the other
frightening
category?
amount of these people have never done endurance before, which I think is just awesome. I think this is incredible that so many people have just been like, "Oh, we don't need endurance experience. We can figure it out on the way." But all of these people are very fit, and all of them are obviously very competent riders. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like the equivalent of me jumping into Rolex and being like, "I don't need to know how to jump a horse. Are you kidding me? I'll figure it out." Like,
Okay, this answered your question. Riding hours today are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and they extended that by an hour. So you're right. They must have been quitting at 6. And I see why. If it gets to be after dark and you got to go find them and there's a problem, it's just more difficult on the quote-unquote crew, the chase team, too.
you're right, but that's the right move to extend the riding hours and give everybody a chance to ride and finish on under their own power, because that's everybody says, I just want to finish. I just want to finish. Nobody wants to be carried forward in the wagon, and saying you're not going fast enough. Giving them more time will definitely increase the number of finishers. So that's really awesome to see.
So these people that are straggling way back here, a lot of them will be carried forward, right? They'll have to move them forward.
Yeah, a fair number of them will be. And I know they'll fight hard not to be, but at some point, the logistics are they're too strung out. They do have medical teams that sort of hover around each rider, but they can't be 6 hours from the nearest rider in case something goes really, really wrong really fast. These are wild horses. There have been some catastrophic injuries. There have been some emergency situations out there. So they need to keep the riders kind of bundled together so that they can reach them in the event of something awful happening.
Well, this has been fun as always, Devin. How many more days do you think till we see somebody cross the finish line? They have all of those to go yet, and that's all mountainous. That's going to be tougher riding.
I'm going to put my money on end of day 8. We'll have somebody across the line.
So that would be our Friday, Saturday, in East time. So probably I would think Friday night into Saturday.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, we have one more question for you, and then we'll have to wrap it up here.
Okay.
What's next for Devin?
Oh, boy. So I am 8 weeks post-op on a knee surgery. So, of course, I have a hiking trip to
if she showed you her leg, it would be all mechanical.
Yeah.
She's got this huge brace on.
I have, I'm 8 weeks out. And so, of course, I have an 80-kilometer hike in Peru scheduled for October. And then my 2023 is completely booked already with adventures and various things that I'd like to do. So,
does your husband worry about you at all, or is he just numb now?
I think he's numb. I think he's been numb since 2013 when I first went over for the Derby. That first time of like lurching anxiety, and I think my mom too has just sort of like learned to live with it. That's horrible, but yeah, they've sort of learned to live with it.
Now, of course, the adventurous or the equestrianists now are doing some other rides now, and they have the one in Patagonia. And now I'm not going to make you say anything. Okay. But it's not a secret. It's on their website that they're announcing very shortly. And it's going to be right when they get back. They're going to come on our show and announce very shortly. They're going to be announcing some new rides. And I can say, because it's on the website, it's not a secret, that one of those rides is going to be in North America.
I have no comment.
No, but that's not a secret. It's on their website. So we're allowed to announce that. I asked. We're allowed to announce that there's going to be a ride in North America. Details have not been forthcoming yet, but that probably means the United States. I would think that that's what they would do. They know they have a lot of riders from here. It would get a lot of press. They would have 1,000 people sign up. So they're not dumb. They know that's what. But one of the things they try and do is support local native populations. And my guess is, you don't say anything, this is my guess. I don't know either. But my guess is, pretty educated guess, by the way. My guess is that they're going to try and do it on native land somewhere here in the United States. And that would probably be the Midwest, the West, somewhere out there. But that's my guess.
No comment.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing. So I don't know anything. I actually don't know anything more than that. So that is a guess. Yeah, but I do know that United States is on the list. Now, whether that's next year to 5 years from now, it takes a while to plan these things. But they had other places on the list too. They had other continents on the list as well. So it's not just the United States. It's other places that are going to be expanding too as well. So they must be pretty thrilled with how everything's happening and how it's all working.
Yeah, I think it's just there's a huge want for adventures like this. Really tough, gritty, you pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, prove your worth situations. Like I feel like there's my dog is here. I feel like there's a huge market for that and a lot of people who are looking for that sort of thing. So if the adventurers are able to organize, I'm always a huge fan of their work and I'll be there. So
well, and this country has so much cool terrain to do a race like this. And tough terrain, not easy either. So we just have the coolest places to do that. I watch a girl by the name of Eva Zubek. She does a YouTube channel. She's from Poland, and she's traveled to 100 countries now and on her YouTube channel. And now she's in a Land Rover or whatever, traveling the United States for the first time. And her comment at the end of the last video was, this is probably the prettiest country she's ever seen. Because she's up in Wyoming and Montana and all those places now, and she's heading to Alaska. But if you want to look her up, it's Eva Zubek. She's fascinating to watch. I mean, she just she's been everywhere, all over the world, and she makes you look stagnant, actually.
Wow, I'll have to look her up.
She actually rode in Mongolia. She did go to Mongolia. One of the videos is a couple of videos of riding horses in Mongolia. That's one of the things she did. But so we do have a cool country, and I'm excited to see where that race will be. And maybe I'll finally get to go to one.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I told Eric I'm going to come help with the crew. I'm going to do it in the place where we eat normal food. That's I said, I'm waiting till you come to the United States, and then I'll go. Well, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much. We're going to probably do this again. So we'll announce, keep an eye out.
There's a whole nother Derby next month, so why
yes,
not?
We have to do it again, I think. And somebody just posted ultimate HRN listener meetup. Yeah, that'd be fun. We can have a meetup there.
You guys could just bring like a bunch of lawn chairs and like hop from station to station, and it would be an incredible vacation.
We'll have flags and banners.
Oh, the horses will love that.
Yeah, the Mustangs they're riding will love that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. If you missed any part of tonight's show, please just go to Stable Scoop, the podcast feed. We will have it there. Or go back and watch the video all over again. It's on 10 of our pages. The one you can always remember, it's always on Horse Radio Network's Facebook page, so you can find it there. Where can they find you if they want to follow you along?
Yeah, the best place is on Facebook. My handle is Texan Temujin, or just Devan Horn with an A.
Devan Horn with an A. All right. Thanks, Devan. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.